Good evening and welcome to Forged from Iron, a little Forged Live, if you will, as we now do the tactical breakdown or tactical takeover, for tomorrow night's Fulham game. First time I've done a live in a little while. Just slowly getting back into obviously getting the channel back up and running and getting the content out to you guys. Before I really get going, please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and please like the video. That'd be very much appreciative. Now, obviously, those of you who've been around the channel for a while will know that in this show, it literally is just a preview of the next game. And tomorrow night we take on Fulham at the London Stadium. Graham Potter's first taste of the London Stadium as the home manager. Hopefully the fans get behind him. If you watched my breakdown of the Villa game earlier today, you'll know how I felt about the first 45 minutes and how pretty much we were undone by our own injuries. But we'll come to that a bit later in the video. Now, we play Fulham tomorrow. Been a bit of a thorn in our side. We played them early this season. I think we took a point away from Craven Cottage, which was an improvement on the spanking we got there last year. They're a good side. Now, before we replaced Lopetegui with Potter, we actually spoke to Fulham and asked them for the buyout or how much it would be to buy out Marco Silva from his contracts and install him as West Ham manager. And from what I understand, we were told it would cost about £8 million. And knowing where we are with regards to PSR, there's conflicting reports out there. Seems like we didn't want to pay it, which I don't think was too bad, to be honest, for someone like Silva. I would have loved to have got Silva out of Fulham. We didn't. We've got Potter, and I'm over the moon with that as well. Again, come to that later. Silva's made Fulham a very good side. I quite like the way they're playing football. In much the same vein as Potter's style of play, they employ a 3-4-3, 3-5-2, that kind of setup. Last time out against Ipswich, they drew. I think it was 2-2, 2 penalties, one coming quite late. Poor old Ipswich. It was in injury time. But they set up like this. I've got their lineup here. So this was how they set up against Ipswich. So they started with Bernd Leno in goal, a back three of Diop, Anderson, and Bassi. Their wing backs were Castagna and Robinson, who I actually rate really highly. I like Robinson. Then they had Kearney and Lukic in the middle. Two wider forward players were Wilson and Iwobi, and then up front was the goal scorer of both penalties, Raul Jimenez. They play very much on the front foot. Beat Liverpool, if my memory serves me. They're playing stuff. I admire quite a few of their players, if I'm honest. Harry Wilson, I think, just has this ability, this knack to just arrive when they need him to arrive, to turn up in games that they need him to turn up in. Scores good goals, makes late runs into the box. Very Souček-like in that sense. But that's probably about the limit of their, so, they've got players that I would love to see at West Ham. Players coming back from injury. I think they've got Smith Rowe, Pereira, lost his place in this game, but he came off the bench. They're a good, solid side, and as I say, they're playing some cracking football. Tomorrow's not going to be easy for Potter and West Ham. We're not going to, shall we say, have it all our own way. They do set up, like I say, on the front foot. They like to play some aggressive football. players that I admire outside, as I say, Traore, it's not. He's very much in the vein of Mikel Antonio. You know, strong, aggressive, pacey. But that's about where it ends as a top quality footballer for me, anyway. He probably needs 12 shots, you know, to get a goal. There's, you know, even his supply isn't great. His crosses, everything else. But you know, it's one of those. If you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, he'll get something for you, be it an assist, be it a goal. You know, like I say, if you continue to get him into the positions over and over and over again, he will deliver. As I say, Smith Rowe absolutely has been brilliant since he went there from Arsenal. Absolutely fantastic player. Really does when he's in the team and he's fit. He really does seem to make them tick. Fulham do have a couple of injury doubts tomorrow. They are without Tete and Nelson, Reece Nelson. Tete has a knee injury and he's ruled out until at least I think it's April. And Reece Nelson has a thigh injury, looking to probably out for the next couple of weeks or so. Sander Berge is a doubt. He has an ankle foot injury. He's graded at 50%. He's going to have a late fitness test tomorrow to see if he's available to start. And then the same with Rodrigo Muniz. He has a lower back injury. He's rated at 75% to return against us tomorrow. We will have our work cut out no matter what, but my confidence is buoyed by the arrival of Potter and 45 minutes against Villa. Just quickly go over to the chat. Becca, good evening. Kind of Ward, thank you for joining me. And Fresh, who I haven't spoken to in a long time. How you doing, buddy? Thank you for joining me. So on to West Ham then. As I say, if you haven't already seen the breakdown of the Villa game that I put up, I think it went out earlier this evening. I am buoyed by the 45 minutes against Villa in the FA Cup game. He had one training session, a journey up to the Midlands. He probably had his pre-match speech with the players before they go out to team talk. And it all just seemed to lock into place, didn't it? It all seemed to fit. Words and pictures, thank you for joining me. Good to see you. Well, I can't see you. And like I say, it all seemed to click. It all seemed to work. Now, we've got to change some things. Obviously, the injuries or the main injury to Fulkrug, obviously rules him out of tomorrow, which is a shame because I actually thought we were going to see something out of him. I think we need to we do need to go into the market and bring someone in, maybe even two strikers in. We've been ruled out of the Rashford signing. Whether we were in that or not, I don't know. But word came out today that he was on 300 grand a week. He was on £75,000 appearance fee, so it's a no go, and we're not in the running now. Our injuries are as such. Obviously, we know about Fulkrug, we know about Antonio, we know about Bowen. They're completely ruled out of tomorrow's game. Regardless, Emerson is graded at 75%, rated at 75% chance for tomorrow. He has a late fitness test. Somerville, who was taken off as a precaution against Villa, he's rated at 50% with another, again, a late fitness test for him. Todibo is ruled out alongside the other names that I've already mentioned. So kind of put paid to me trying to, without doing that, putting my my predicted lineup out. It's a shame, as I say, Somerville was a very, very much a bright spark against Villa. We lined up in very much a 3-4-2-1 formation. Again, it's all in the breakdown, and I was hoping to see the same. So my predicted lineup, if you want, for tomorrow's game, is one as such. Now, let me just bring it up for you. And it's going to be a couple of shocks in there. Well, at least one shock in there. There we go. So my lineup tomorrow night would be Fabianski in goal, Kilman, Mavropanos and Wan-Bissaka as centre-backs tomorrow, as part of the three centre-backs. I'll come to that and why Wan-Bissaka in there as the right-sided centre-back momentarily. Now, without Fulcrook and without Somerville, if Somerville doesn't pass the fitness test, that's this team relies on him being out, I suppose, if you want. Now, Guilherme comes in to replace Somerville on that right-hand side. Souček and Alvarez as the two holding midfielders, and Skulls retains his left-handed side, that left-sided place. And then I suppose the two number 10s, if you want, would be Soler, Paquetá, with Kudus through the middle. Now, if Somerville is fit, Somerville replaces Guilherme and nothing else changes. That's where I sit on this. And the reason I say this, and again, if you've watched the breakdown video from earlier against Villa, Wan-Bissaka gives us pace at the back where we tend to, the way that Potter's going to want us to play, progressively higher up the pitch. I'm not talking halfway line. I'm talking maybe 5 or 10 yards further forward than we did under Lopetegui, than we did under Moyes. But we need that pace of recovery, which Wan-Bissaka as a centre-back gives us. Potter obviously sees it because that's where he started against Villa, with Somerville operating as much as a right wing back. Obviously, things changed when Somerville went off, and we brought on Soufal and Wan-Bissaka swapped places. Wan-Bissaka then took on the role of Somerville, but again, we had to drop significantly deeper because we'd lost the pace of Wan-Bissaka at the back. So I've picked my team around the fact that I want to see Wan-Bissaka back there again, which means we can get higher up the pitch. We can get we can play progressively higher and press, which then means off the back of that, the midfield is a little bit higher and the attacking players are higher. If you noticed on Friday night against Villa, once we'd made the changes through the injuries, like I say, we got deeper, and at one point Danny Ings was probably 15 yards inside our half. I don't want to see our attacking players that deep in our half. We won't have an outlet. With Kudus, we get an outlet. The man is a beast. He's strong on the ball. He regularly shrugs off two defenders, and if not, invites the fouls, and we can build out that way. With Soler and Paquetá in the 10, it offers us the through balls. We saw Paquetá's through ball in the Conference League final to Bowen. We know he has it in his locker. And for the first half against Villa, he looked a little bit like his former self. What we didn't get in the first half was the histrionics that we got in the second half, when he felt like, well, to me, it felt like he was trying to buy free kicks. He was trying to con the referee into winning free kicks. He was trying to, you know, he a lot of play acting in there, and we suffered for that. We suffered significantly for that, and it was a bloody nuisance. Now, this offers us, for me, this lineup that I see on your screen here. I'm going to get rid of it for a moment. That offers us some significant progression forward. Soler, Paquetá, they're not awful players. We know this. They since we moved Soler more inside, I think we benefit from that. We've seen a greater production from him. Paquetá, again, he's would you put him in his more favoured position, but he is also out towards that left hand side where he can support Skulls. And I just think we look more balanced because of it. That first half against Villa that I keep banging the drum about, we looked really, really good. Do me a favour, guys. Those that are watching, there are 6 of you, and it's not huge numbers, and I don't care about that. The guys that are watching, I'm very grateful for you being here. Do me a favour and drop your thoughts on the lineup on your screen. Then tell me what you think. Tell me what you think if you think I'm wrong and where you think I'm wrong. Because I'd like to know your thoughts on it. I have a message here from Colonel Ward. He says here, he's obviously an Arsenal fan. Disgraceful that we let Smith Rowe and Reece go. Fulham, Martinelli and Trossard are now playing without pressure. And the thing there, mate, is I feel that those 2 players were overlooked massively by Arsenal, by Arteta, and they deserved game time. Now, the way I put it in a conversation with an Arsenal fan that was in my pub was they weren't good enough to start for Arsenal, but they were too good to be on their bench, if that makes sense. They've gone to Fulham. They are now playing out of their skin. They are playing some fantastic football. And proves my point. You say there that, you disgracefully let them go, that Trossard and Martinelli are playing without any kind of pressure. I mean, that can change. Obviously, you've had a significant injury to Bukayo Saka. That's a bit of a nuisance. It's a massive nuisance, to be fair. And I did think at that point, possibly you'd come in and look at Mohamed Kudus as a replacement. Now, my argument to that was Kudus wouldn't then want to sit on the bench when Saka come back. He doesn't like playing on the left-hand side. We know this. We've had those issues here at West Ham. So he wasn't going to come in, play right-sided midfield for you for a couple of months and then be moved out to the left, because then you'd have the same problems we've had with him not enjoying his football and not being a disruptive influence around the club. I'm not pinning that on Kudus, but there was obviously something wrong with his time under Lopetegui as well. Fresh says here that Guilherme should be a little bit further forward, but that would change the shape. Now, Fresh, I said this about Somerville on Friday. I felt that playing him as a right wing back, considering we purchased him as a left-sided player, he was Championship Player of the Season for Leeds, playing out of that side of the pitch, by the way. And Potter's walked in, and on one training session, he's decided, I'm going to play this boy as a right-sided wing back to a degree. I mean, he made a fantastic tackle in the first half, which completely blew me out of the water. I was sitting there with a group of West Ham fans, friends of mine, and we all looked at each other absolutely bemused that this attacking threat that we have that should have been playing out of the left did what he did with the tackle that he did. At one point, I thought it was, without sounding, people will throw it at me, I thought it was Wan-Bissaka getting back there and making that tackle, and it wasn't. It was Somerville, and it was brilliant. Now, Guilherme, we haven't seen a great deal of. We don't know. I mean, he came on against Liverpool, had the shot, took a deflection, hit the post. He hasn't looked too bad in the few minutes that he's got elsewhere in other games this season. So I'd be interested to see what he can do in that position. You've got to bear in mind now, if Somerville doesn't start tomorrow, okay, it could rule him out of, or he could be back, for Sunday's game. That's not ideal that he misses tomorrow, but he could miss tomorrow and be back for the weekend's game. Now, like I say, I'd love to see what Guilherme can do. If that's a significant injury, he fails the fitness test tomorrow, doesn't play at the weekend, Guilherme needs to step in. We bought him for a reason. We spent over £25 million on this player, and we have to get something from him. He's played very little. Lewisham Sirens. We've played very little. He's played very little in terms of first team football. He's played very little in terms of under 21s football. He just seems to have been left in limbo. Lopetegui didn't fancy him for whatever reason, but Steiden did. Forget all of the undercurrent stuff within the club about Steiden. I don't care. Steiden obviously saw something in this young lad. He was ranked the number 2 Brazilian youngster behind Endrick. Is it Endrick, the guy that went to Real Madrid? He was ranked number 2 behind him last season, and we got him. So there's a reason he was ranked number 2. Let's give him some game time. Let's get him out there playing, because I think by doing so, he gets better. That's just ridiculous. It's obvious. Couple of other comments, and Becca says, I think it's a great lineup. Agree the pace at the back is needed in Wan-Bissaka. Again, he gave us that outlet. A friend of mine, Neil, used to talk about Wan-Bissaka when he was at United, and the reason that he made so many great last-ditch tackles, the fact that he made so many great recovering tackles for Manchester United is because he was so poor at his positioning, and he was caught so far forward that was the reason he had to get back and make those challenges. Well, by putting him in a back 3, he doesn't have to do those, does he? He can make those recovery tackles from being in a defensive position, and I like that. I like the idea of that pace. Mavropanos he has a ricket in him. I think Kilman is a fantastic ball-playing defender. He likes to bring the ball out. He likes to step into the spaces, carry the ball up the pitch. It benefits us having that pace in there. Words and Pictures says, for me, the formation and the lineup haven't been our main problem. It's the intent and the style. If Potter can give us an increasingly more of an attacking first half we saw, more of the attacking first half we saw, I'll be happy. That being said, Words and Pictures, I think that's dependent on the formation. I think that's dependent on essentially the way I look at it, the way we're set up is you kind of have 5 attacking players, Guilherme, Scholes, Soler, Paquetá, Kudus, and you have 5 defensive players in Wan-Bissaka, Mavropanos, Kilman, Souček, Alvarez. Now, if you look at Souček's output against Villa in the first half, a lot more progressive passes, a lot more forward passes. He was quicker at the passes. In fact, he had a better passing ratio than Alvarez that was next to him, which is unusual for Souček. Let's be honest, the amount of times last season, he didn't make one forward pass. He didn't make one completed pass in certain games. You look at him in his first half against Villa, he outdid most of that and put a lot of that behind him. So when you have the 5 and 5, it kind of imitates, I suppose, in a way, the Italian football that the attackers attack and the defenders defend, and you're not expected to do the rest of it. Can't necessarily do that in the Premier League, but I think what you've got, and let me come back to I'm putting it on the screen. Give me a second, because the way I see it, not that one. There we go. What you're looking at, that's a great show, by the way, 1883. What you're looking at there is when Guilherme and Scholes break forward down those flanks to give Soler, Paquetá the support that they need. If we lose the ball, you have Souček and Alvarez that can drop in to create a five-man wall, if you will, until those players get back and offer, offer the help, if you want, up until probably in and around that centre circle area. And then, you go back to your original setup, if you will. They're not necessarily out and out defenders, but they're not necessarily out and out forward players. I know I'm kind of contradicting myself slightly, but you get what I mean. Joe here says that she's excited to see what Ollie Scholes can bring to the team. I'll tell you what, from what I saw, Joe, on Friday, and I've said this to you here indoors, I was over the moon when I saw Scholes' name on the team sheet. I was given heads up about 20 minutes before it came out, the lineup, and I was buzzing. I know that Orford went, and I know Casey went to the Midlands, to Villa Park. Orford didn't get on the bench, which was a shame, because I would have loved to have seen him make the bench as well. But his time will come. I have no doubt his time will come. He's just got to wait. I know he's waited already, but he's just got to be patient under Potter, because his time will come. I think he's only saving grace this season is that George Earthy is out on loan. It might be that when Earthy comes back next season, it'll be Orford's turn to go out on loan. A bit like Freddie Potts, Earthy, Callum Marshall. They've gone out on loan this season. They've got some good game time, and I think that will benefit Orford next year. When he gets his chance within the next remaining, the remainder of the season, he needs to grab that and take it. And Scholes certainly did that on Friday night. He grabbed his chance in that first team. He got man of the match. He didn't look out of place. I saw someone put on X, obviously formerly known as Twitter, that he looked like he'd played 50 first team games for the club. He did not look out of place, and I love that. I love that statement. He looks calm, composed, and he's been a main fixture for some time now. Colonel says, do you agree with most of these managers playing 3-4-3, essentially mostly not seeing much difference in terms of play styles in the game anymore? 110% correct. I honestly think, and I said this a couple of times earlier in the season, I've said it on previous videos, that if a manager was to throw up a 4-4-2 in the Premier League with a certain playing style and a certain intent on playing, with old school wingers that get down the wing and put crosses in, I don't think there's a manager in the Premier League that have a bloody clue as to how to counteract it, how to put in a lineup, a tactical setup that would be able to nullify it. I think their brains would go. All of this playing out from the back, they used to. It didn't do us any harm when we had Phil Parkes in goal, would just put his foot through the ball, or Ludek Miklosko used to put his foot through the ball, and you'd have two main strikers up front with the likes of Tony Cottee, Frank McAvenny. We had Paul Kitson and John Hartson at one point. It didn't do us any harm, and I don't think there's any manager in the Premier League today that will be able to combat an old school 4-4-2 tactic. I really don't. Kieran, good morning, sir. All the way from, I'm guessing, sunny Australia. Yes, sod. And words and pictures. It is. 1883 does look good. I'm going to give it a watch. Now, what I will say is, it can be very. It can bring your mood down. I'll leave it at that. There are a lot of things that happen in such a short space of time that would really test a lot of people. I found it quite a difficult watch to start with once I got into it, but it's a fantastic show. And then obviously it follows on, I think, with 1923 with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren as the lead characters in that. But back to West Ham. That's how I see us lining up. Well, in fact, let me rephrase that. That's how I'd like to see us line up. Potter gave me hope on Friday for a change in formation, a change in playing style, a change in tactical development. And the way I see this lineup is a great way to go forward. It gives us balance within the side. For whatever reason, when we played, I even think Rodriguez could fit into this team, knowing that we're going to be playing differently. I think it was Darren Blewett. I listened to Darren Blewett on a podcast. Now, Darren Blewett is a former member of the youth team, the academy at West Ham. He was part of Mark Noble's testimonial at the club. Scored a penalty. Now, I listened to Darren. I've met Darren a couple of times. Lovely bloke, really, really nice guy, great to talk to. And he did a little podcast a week or two ago. And he was asked about Rodriguez and Alvarez. He was asked about the back four and the mistakes and the constant pressure we found ourselves under. Now, he made a valid comment that these players that are under Lopetegui, under Moyes, they defended so much, so deep, that they had to stay switched on mentally. They had to be constantly on it, and you're going to make mistakes. You end up with fatigue because you're running around, you're constantly chasing, but you also get fatigue here. You get mentally fatigued, and that's where mistakes come in. And we made an abundance of those, probably more than our fair share. And as Darren said, that becomes from having to defend for 75, 80 minutes of a match, rather than being on the front foot where your attacking set of players take the pressure off of you. You're constantly panicked about what follows next. And it takes its toll, and you've seen it take its toll on these players, and we've suffered for that as a club. I don't see that under Potter. The changes he made against Villa, as I say, they were kind of forced upon him. I think he made a mistake bringing on Soufal. That's no disrespect to Soufal. I think Soufal has been a fantastic servant for us. But bringing him on and putting him in the place of Wan-Bissaka and putting Wan-Bissaka in Somerville's role, we lost that solidity at the back with the pace that Wan-Bissaka offered. So we had to naturally drop deeper to compensate for that pace. By doing that, that brought the midfield four further back. Skulls and Wan-Bissaka had to come deeper, which then meant that Paquetá and I can't remember who the other one was, but they had to drop deeper, and Ings had to drop deeper. So you ended up seeing us pretty much every single one of our players in our own half at that point, which brought back flashbacks of obviously the previous regime. We do need to go out and buy a couple of players in this window. I know we're looking at Ferguson, but Ferguson has his own injury problems. And from what I understand, Brighton are not willing to do any kind of business until the end of the transfer window because they're waiting on Danny Welbeck. Rashford's a no-go. Jonathan David in France could be available for a fee. £20 million is something I'm hearing banded around. He'd be a fantastic signing. But I also think we need to look to the academy as well. As I say, Orford, Casey, Skulls, Jala's in there as well. So the future looks bright under Potter. The future looks bright with the fact that we've got the academy players coming through. We never saw anything with Moyes until his hand was kind of forced towards the end of last season when he brought on Earthy. I remember Earthy taking a massive clump, was it a head injury, and was taken off at the end of one of the games. I think I was at that game. He seems to be doing okay down at Bristol City. You've got Gideon Kudua, who's out at Wickham, playing very well, assisted a goal, I think, on Friday night against Freddie Potts' Portsmouth. with some great play down the right wing. Again, we've got an abundance of talent apparently on the right. You know, Guilherme, Bowen, Kudus, now Somerville. Is Kajua going to be able to break that? Well, you never know. Again, Freddie Potts having a fantastic season down at Portsmouth. The Portsmouth fans are using the age-old adage of never fall in love with a lone player. They're saying I think he won Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year as well at Wickham last year, and it looks like he's about to do the same thing halfway through the season. It looks like he's about to do the same thing at Portsmouth. I don't think from what I understand is we cannot recall James Ward-Prowse. Unless Forest agree, and again, he's not being played as often as I think he'd like. Southampton are not happy with Cornet, so you can recall him. But if you recall him, that gives us an option on the left. But I don't like that because that's hopefully now Scholes' position. Can't recall Lagarde because Sociedad have said not doing it. I think we can recall Potts because there wasn't a fee involved. We sent in there for development. So I do believe we can recall him without negotiations. But I really hope not for Portsmouth as well as for him because he seems to be flying down there. We bring him back. He's going to be one of a number of players trying to fight for that position. Alvarez, Souček, Rodriguez, Soler, Paquetá, dependent on where they go. So we'll see. That's my thoughts on the lineup. That's what I'd like to see going forward as a lineup and a formation. I'll give you a score prediction for tomorrow. Let me know your score predictions as well in the comments below. If you haven't already done so, like the video as well. But I think I'm going to go for a 3-1 Hammers win tomorrow. Could possibly be more if we see that formation and that lineup tomorrow. It could be 4. I can see our back line holding off Fulham's attacking lineup. Kieran does say here, though, that if Mavs is missing tomorrow night, you might see Soufal. I don't think Mavs will be. From Potter's press conference this morning, he did say that Mavs is fine and available for tomorrow. He did take a bit of a clump on the head when he decided to try and lay on the floor and tackle someone with his head against Villa and took a knock from a knee. So I think he will be available tomorrow. So I think, again, I don't know, but that's what I'd like to see. So I'm going 3-1 win. Becca's gone with a 2-1 West Ham win. Becca, who are your goal scorers? Mine, I'm going to go with a Kudus brace and one for Paqueta. That'll be my bet tomorrow as well. I'm not going. I know a lot of people that are going tomorrow. I'd like to think, those that are going, someone does go, bring me back the program. I want to see the singing. I want to hear, listen, those 6,000, let me rephrase that. I heard 6,000 or 8,000 went to Villa Park on Friday and they outsung and made more noise than the rest of Villa Park. And our West Ham away fans, a hill that I will die on. The West Ham away fans are the best in the country. There are no better. And that is a hill I will die on. And again, they were fantastic at Villa on Friday night. I just hope the home fans make just as much noise. Sing Potter's name loud, sing Potter's name proud. And let's get behind this West Ham side. Colonel's gone with a 2-0 West Ham win and a new manager bounce for a little while. I like that. Josiah says 3-1 West Ham. Love that. And Becca's goal scorers are Souček and Kudus. You boys that have put yours in there, let me know your goal scorers as well before we sign off. We've been going 40 minutes now. I expected this to last 15. It's been a while since I've thrown out a proper live. I was hoping to get a couple of guests on this evening. especially a couple of guys that were going tomorrow, but unfortunately they had other prior engagements, so they couldn't come on, which is a shame. I'll be back on probably Wednesday evening now. I don't like competing with the big boys. West Ham Network, West Ham Fan TV, Hammers Chat. A couple of the others that are out there, I know E20 Zone TV. They do, they do their lives after the game. There's no point in me going live because I cannot. Most of you guys out there in West Ham world follow those as well and subscribe to their channel. So it's no point me going live when you're going to be watching them. And 9 times out of 10, I'm watching them as well. So Josiah says a Kudus hat trick. Listen, it'll be about time that boy came good. He's been off the boil for the first, the first half of the season, same as Paquetá. In fact, you could probably say most of the team have been off the boil. I would really like to see a continuation of what started at Villa in the first half. Guys, girls, thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit here for this long and do this live. It's funny because the amount of times that I've come away from this, not had the time. I can't make a full-time job out of this. I run a pub. It's difficult for me to find the time to come and do these. Family life gets in the way. Work life gets in the way. I say gets in the way. That's the wrong choice of words, but it's that comes first before for me, my YouTube channel. But it really is good to be back. It's really good to be creating the content again. At the moment, it is just previews and reviews of games. If I get the chance to chuck up a little bit of information about transfers or other bits and pieces that come through, if I can get away and get up and do them. But 9 times out of 10, they've already been covered by the guys that do this, that have numbers within their ranks, that if 3 are at work, 1 isn't, 1 gets on and does the breaking news. I can't necessarily do that. So I bring you the news when I can. And sometimes it's a day or 2 old, but I can't do much about that. But I've enjoyed being back. I've enjoyed my time talking to you guys tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. As I say, I'm going with a 3-1 win West Ham tomorrow. If you're going, sing loud, sing proud, and come on, you Irons. Oh, my God. I will get used to this one.